Welcome back to Real Estate Ramblings. I'm Amy Shrader with Remax Real Estate 10.
I'm Ashley Hunt.
Michelle Hodges.
All right, ladies, welcome back. It's been a hot past 2 weeks.
Yes, it has.
I feel for y'all because I know you're out there in the grind showing property and sweating like no other, I'm sure.
For sure.
I don't know about you, but I feel like this is the hottest summer it's ever been. Like, we're not getting any relief. No rain, no cooler temps. It's driving me, but it's bananas.
I did get some rain yesterday, though.
We got a very brief shower. I mean, like, just enough to make you mad. You know what I mean?
Not enough to cool it down.
Not enough to cool it down. Not enough to help my grass that's turned brown now. All I got growing is weeds, but
It's true.
it's hot. I'm over it.
Summer in East Tennessee.
I know.
I'm a summer person, though. I'm like, I love the hot.
Give it 20 years. We'll see what you say about that.
Yeah, you're the young one in the group. All right. So what kind of activity y'all seeing out there? Getting a lot of buyers? Getting some contracts?
We are seeing a lot of buyers. I do think buyers are a little more timid right now than they have been in the past. So, before, like the past couple of years, you could take them to see if, handful of houses and they're ready to go. And I think they're being quite a bit more selective now, spending more time in the homes, looking at things. So, yeah, I got some great folks that are ready to go when they find the right place. But yeah, they're certainly not jumping on anything that floats in front of them.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of slowed down a little bit on the buyer side. Starting to see a little bit more on the market on my end of it, but less on the buyer side.
Okay. Well, I know I was reading through an article from Housing Wire that came out this morning, and it said that inventory across the country dropped last week. And it wasn't because the homes sold, but sellers are getting frustrated with the market and just pulling their home off the market altogether. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I know what I think and why that's happening, but I'm curious as to what y'all think.
I think pricing. I think it's just come down to they're not getting the prices that they, once seen COVID time, and we're starting to realize that it's coming down a little bit. It's trickling down.
I would agree with that 100%. I think that because the market has shifted, and I think you got two factors there. You've got realtors that I think maybe aren't looking into it closely enough when it comes to pricing in advance, who are maybe overinflating this or giving them the whole how much you want for it, and letting sellers make that decision for them. And again, the market has shifted, and you have to think about it from a buyer's point of view on where they are, how much they're going to end up paying in a mortgage payment, and all of those things. I just think it's shifted, and folks are not okay with that, and so they're coming in with their price, I think, way too high to begin with. Probably cutting it a couple of times, maybe, and probably not by enough. But I think they still have the wrong idea about pricing in their head.
I agree.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at on it. I think they're listing with the agents who are buying their listing by giving them, this pie in the sky pricing. And, like if you've got a house that maybe is getting sold to settle in a state, somebody's passed away, and it's straight up 1972. You know what I'm saying? You've got the pink and powder blue ceramic tile bathrooms, you've got paneling, you've got mauve carpet, you've got all these dated factors, but they're pulling comps from the subdivision, and they say, oh, well, these houses with this much square footage, I mean, you should be able to get this. No, you can't.
Right.
You can't price a house that needs a complete reno to homes that have had at least some renovation done.
Absolutely.
And I think it factors back to exactly what you said. We've got agents who came into the business during the COVID times. They didn't really learn pricing. They didn't learn how to do a CMA. And maybe they just don't have the confidence when they're talking to a seller to say, hey, if you really want to get your home sold,
right,
this is where we need to be.
Yeah.
and giving them those pricing timelines. Basically, this is what the average days on market is. So if you want to sell in this timeline, this is where we need to be.
Right.
I met with the seller Saturday, and I actually met with two Saturday. And the first one, it's an estate sale. Sisters came in from Florida. Dad lived in this mobile home in Jefferson County. And I always ask people, what do you think the home is worth? Because they've all been on Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin,
absolutely.
any of that. You know what I'm saying? They're all looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
And whether they're going to tell you or not, they have. So I'm like, what do you think the home's worth? I'm sure you've looked it up, da-da-da-da-da. And so they had a price in mind. Well, this was a 2-bed, 2-bath manufactured home. And this particular subdivision, they have the TVA power towers running right smack dab in the middle of the subdivision. You know what I'm saying? Which does play a part in your pricing and stuff. And so my thought on what the price was about $25,000 below what they were thinking. So I just had to break it down, and I said, look, if it was a 3-bedroom with more square footage,
Right.
you could probably get 200. But where we're at with a 2-bedroom home, I just don't think you're going to get comps for that.
I totally agree. And I think what a lot of sellers need to understand is that when a buyer goes out to look at a home, they're looking for the amount of bedrooms they need. They're looking for the amount of bathrooms they need. So when you are putting in, in your mind, so like let's just say on the one house that we had that really was a nice home, and yes, they had done all of these pretty things to it, but the reality was it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home. So when a seller goes out, or when a buyer goes out to actually look at those things, they're looking for 3-bedroom, 2-bath at this price point. So if you have less bedrooms, less baths, and you're trying to sell them at the same price point as a 3-bedroom, or as more bedrooms, more baths, those are not even being seen. Nobody's
Right.
looking at it. So you're going to have to price appropriately for what it is. Again, it's the funny thing about it is they don't realize it's not like they're just seeing your house. They're never even seeing your house because you're overpriced.
Well, they're never seeing it too because of the parameters they put in.
Right, absolutely.
For their search.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, the thing about this was they cut out one of the bedrooms. If you'll remember, at one point it was a 4-bedroom, but they cut out one of the bedrooms and ended up making it into like a sauna room. And so that's lovely for you, but it's changed the dynamic of your home. And like you said, the parameters where people are looking. So if you're wanting to go out and price your home in different ways, then you got to be taking those things into account, because those are the first things they're going to put in are the bedrooms and the bathrooms. How many does it have? And if you're trying to sell a 2-bedroom, 1-bath at the same price as a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you're not being seen.
Right. And that second appointment that I went on, they had talked to another agent. And it was, it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, but it had been added on to. It was a brick. It had a full unfinished basement, had about an acre. But again, it was a complete gut job, And these people had been passed away for almost a year. And the house, of course, is not occupied. There's maintenance issues that you're seeing that need to be addressed.
Right.
And so I told them what I thought about it. And I thought her mouth was going to hit the ground. And the other person that she had spoken to told her about $75,000 more than what I had told them.
Wow.
Right.
And I was like, my personal opinion is you're not even going to get showings at that price, because the photos are going to reveal that the home is dated, it needs renovation, there's some maintenance issues that need to be addressed. I get that everybody wants to get the most they can for their house, but you're just prolonging your sales process.
Agreed. And how many times have you seen it where you've been to a listing appointment with other, where they're actually interviewing multiple agents for that, and you give them one price, and then another agent gives them an inflated price. It sits on the market for 6 months, and then you see it drop down to the price that you have originally told them before it sells. I mean, I get the catch in that, and that's tough. And as a seller, I guess it would be, I mean, that's kind of like whispering sweet nothings in my ear on a date. You know what I'm saying? You've just given me big hard eyes.
Yep.
And so, of course, I'm going to listen. I'm going to be taken away by that. And that's, unfortunately, it's a little bit of an injustice to do to sellers. But
yeah, I mean, to me, it's kind of funny because a lot of times these people come to me because they watch our videos or they've, followed me on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. And they're like, you seem like you're really in the market. You know what's going on. You sell a lot of houses and you're a straight shooter and that's what we're looking for. Well, no, it's not. You want the person who's telling you they're going to get you the most money.
Right.
And I'm just being honest with you and saying, this is what you're going to get. And I heard another person say it, and I thought this was the best approach when going into a listing appointment. Instead of saying, well, let's talk about how much your home is worth. Go in and say, I'm not here to tell you how much your home is worth. I'm here to tell you what buyers will pay you for your house.
Right.
And I was like, there you go, because those numbers can be two very different things.
Absolutely. I think that's a big deal in understanding that from the front. Like you said, it's going to make a difference in how long that house sits on the market, how many times you have to cut that price. But I think we just should coin a new phrase, real estate romance.
I get contacted a lot by appraisers that are just kind of like, how'd you get this price, or this house sold, and how did it do on the market? And it's kind of like, you guys are pulling basically the same thing we are, just pulling enough of the market and the comps and everything. So,
well, I know in other parts, apparently appraised value is becoming a bigger issue. Like, people are getting homes under contract. I know another agent in our office had one, I think, last week, where the appraisal come in, I think, $50,000 below their contract price. Mm-hmm. So if you price it right, you don't really have to worry about those appraisal issues. Now, I've got one going right now where there's 2 houses on a piece of land. And, I mean, it's a little bit of acreage, less than 10 acres. And we can't get an appraiser to pick it up. Like, it's been out for a week and nobody wants to take it. Or they want to charge like $1,000 to do this appraisal. And so my seller's very frustrated because they're saying, I don't understand this. We see homes all the time around here that have 2 houses on it that sell. So surely to God, there's comps out there. And I'm like, well, what we have to look at is one of your homes is brand new construction. The other home is a manufactured home, which is being considered an ADU, additional dwelling unit. But the additional dwelling unit has more square footage than the new construction home. So it kind of throws a different mix in things because it is going to be hard to find another comp that has a brand new construction with a manufactured home. So they've already texted me this morning because we're supposed to be going to closing next week, and obviously we don't even have an appraisal done yet. So they're very frustrated by the process, and I get that. You know what I'm saying? Like when I'm comping something like that, you basically are building it up by looking at different homes and kind of adding them together.
Things together. I 100% agree. I think folks have got to learn how to do that because there are going to be unique homes out there that aren't the same. So you got to kind of be able to look at that and say, okay, here's the value in this, and maybe do a little bit of a breakdown on that because you may not have. We've had several of those, pop up over the past year where it's just a unique home and you got to think a little bit outside the box to be able to come up with the appropriate numbers for it.
But then the problem is if the buyer ends up financing, the appraisers are not allowed to do this, kind of creative marketing approach to get a value. They've got set guidelines that they have to follow. So that's the challenge on it, I think. There's never a happy medium.
No.
When you have unique properties, I don't think. So
Right.
That's just the joys of selling real estate, right?
Well, and I think when you get through it, you got to tell like the person on the other side. Like I work with a lot of the buyers on that side, and I remind them, just so you know, what we're going through now on this pricing, will happen again when you get ready to sell this thing, because it's a unique property, and it is what it is, though. Unique properties have to sell too, so we just got to figure it out and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you're going to have to move from this, online lender who doesn't really know the area to someone
Right.
that's more local, that has better, relationships with those appraisers and
Right.
stuff.
And better, products that they can offer to meet different circumstances that are in our area.
Right.
So I think that matters too. I agree with you.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to ask you all a question. Do you think open houses actually sell homes?
I do not.
Nor do I anymore. I think there's too much online access. I think, if you want to open, if you got something, buyers are just out there crawling everywhere now, though, looking at things. So it's not like you have to drive buyers to a home. It's not. They've seen a lot of the inventory. They see it all out there online all the time. So I think what we've seen when we've done them over the past 4 years is that you've got neighbors, curious people in the neighborhood that want to come look, and they're curious about how much you're letting it go for them. They're wanting to see how their house might size up, at the set. So I don't see. I haven't seen a lot of open houses that I've worked that have really brought anything more than curiosity out of neighbors.
Me either.
Okay.
What's your opinion?
Oh, I don't think it's going to sell a house. I mean, even NAR research shows that open houses are effective less than 1% of the time in selling that particular home. Most of the time, an open house is used for a buyer's agent to
Grab some leads.
grab leads and attract buyers. And Michelle and I talked about this last week, that, if I have a house listed, and let's say you approach me and you want to do an open house on my listing. Well, according to the new NAR guidelines, if you're hosting an open house, you don't have to get that new touring agreement signed, right?
Right.
So they do that because when you host the open house, you represent who?
The seller.
The seller. You're the agent for the seller at that open house. But yet you're working it to attract buyers.
Buyers, absolutely.
So I don't know how exactly that's supposed to work. If you're stating, I don't have to get the touring agreement signed because I'm representing the seller for this open house, but you are actively prospecting these buyers that come in, how is that not a conflict of interest?
Yeah, it's
in my opinion.
Sword.
Well, and those folks probably have never even had. Just cut that out. I'm gonna let that ride. I'm gonna let that ride.
Well, and I mean, I've had open houses where, we've had 18 to 35 in attendance. But
Right.
I mean, those were planned well in advance. I sent out postcards. We ran newspaper ads. This has been a few years ago, folks. And you really targeted, trying to get people into them. And because of where the house was, who might have owned it previously, there was a lot of interest in those homes. And so people did come out. Did I sell? Actually, I did sell one. I have sold one house to somebody who came to the open house.
Yeah.
So that was the anomaly. You know what I'm saying? But most of the time, the latest ones that I have tried to do, I mean, we might have had 3 people come through.
I'm going to be honest with you. I've done several, and I had one neighbor at one neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other one, I had nobody, not one person. And this one was in the middle of town. And so easy access, information was out there. But again, if they want to see that home,
They're going to see it anyway.
they see it online.
And that's my thing. You were talking about nosy neighbors coming in wanting to compare their home. But I mean, they really don't even have to do that because, you've got photos online that are going to show you what the house looks like. It's going to tell you the description, the square footage,
Right. But they still do. I mean, that's usually who you get when you go. I mean, it's just that you got, and I get it. They're curious. It's their opportunity to come in and, go through this home like they've never been able to do before. But I don't see them as being effective. Not even really at driving buyers in. I don't see them as being effective at driving buyers in. I've never been at one and been like, hey, so do you need a buyer's agent? We've not been able to have that.
Right. And I know, I worked at the title company and I worked in mortgages before I got into real estate. And when the market crashed, so to speak, back in like '08, I mean, nobody was buying a house. It was sad, bad, horrible. So the National Association of Realtors said, we need to spur buyer activity. We need to get people out here looking at houses again. And, we had online MLSs, but professional photos were not being used back then. It's just a different experience now because you didn't have all the social media, you didn't have all those websites that we have now. So the National Association of Realtors said, let's do a national open house day. And so they were running nationwide ads promoting this particular day or weekend as National Open House Weekend. And then it was up to you as the agent to basically include your listing or whatever in that. And so, at that time, my job was to help realtors with their marketing efforts and do stuff like that. So we had ordered like the National Open House Weekend balloons and banners and different things to help them bring interest to the home. And I mean, back then, open houses were a good way to get people in the house.
Right.
Because they could actually lay good eyes on it because the photos they were getting sucked. So it's amazing to me to see the change from where you would have an open house from 2 to 4 on a Saturday and have 20, 25 people come through to where now you hold it open for 2 or 3 hours and you might get one person.
Right, you might.
And you might not. And I think the Matterport 3D virtual tours, the videos, the, Instagram reels of a walkthrough of a house that some people do, I just think that contributes to we don't have to go look at it, in an open house time frame.
Right.
And I've listed higher end homes that might be on the lake and they're like, so are we going to do an open house? And I'm like, no.
Right.
If they're coming, if you already know your buyer's an out of state buyer, why would you do an open house?
Absolutely.
You're not benefiting anything because nobody's going to plan a trip to East Tennessee just because we're hosting an
and
open house that weekend.
And the locals aren't going to come just to see your house that they can't afford just because.
Well, no, they probably would. And to me, that's the other side of that is if we held an open house, I can't control who walks through your door.
Right.
So you may end up getting 10 or 12 people, but they couldn't buy it if they wanted to.
Yeah,
So
I'm just not seeing that these days. I think the locals, again, because of the technology and because of all those things, and you used to have people, I think, back in the day when open houses were popular.
Oh, that was their thing.
That's what they would do on a Sunday or Saturday afternoon. Yeah. They would drive together and they would just go, yes, absolutely. They would go grab some lunch after church or whatever, and then they'd go, pull out their newspaper, circle open houses, and that's what they do.
Or they'd ride through some neighborhoods that they liked and see the open house signs. And
right. But that's just not the way they do it. I think they target things online now much more often other than just riding around. I think they find it online, then drive out to see it.
Well, and I think it's the age of the buyers too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because like the people buying houses 10, 15, 20 years ago probably were people our age. You know what I'm saying? And that was how you found an open house, and now this younger generation of buyers, they don't even know what a newspaper is. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so they're all about the online. So I think it's just, I think the technology has just defeated the purpose of hosting an open house.
I totally agree.
And I see agents in, these big cities in other states that they make an event out of their open house and they're hiring a food truck and they're doing this. And I'm like, I'm not paying $5,000 on an event.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If I'm going to do that, it's going to be for a customer appreciation and not trying to draw
Agreed.
buyers in.
Agreed.
So I think geographically, we're just not the best area to have an open house in.
I agree.
So when you have people who approach you about listing their house, what are some of the things you might suggest to them they may want to spend a little bit of money doing before you put that house on the market?
Well, of course, a lot of it boils down to what they can or can't do and where they're at financially and what needs to be done. So I typically will walk the house with them and look for things, whether it's something that's going to cost them a lot of money or whether it's something that's going to be just little details. I mean, like clean out your gutters, or let's take a pressure washer to the siding and make sure the yard's mowed and things like that. And two, what I look for, I really kind of walk through a house the same way I do with a buyer. I'm not so much looking at their aesthetics. I'm looking at, first of all, do they have all the stuff out of the way? Do they have all those things? But I'm really looking for things that a buyer might see that would immediately make them go to money. Spots on the ceiling, even if they're old spots, it immediately when somebody sees spots on a ceiling, their mind goes to, the roof. So I really try to look for things like that. I think that I feel like, and I tell them to spend less time on the aesthetics other than keeping the house good and clean, minimizing the stuff, more time on the things that might make a person think that there's damage somewhere.
I would say cleaning up the outside, kind of make it more curb appeal and declutter. A lot of people want to imagine their furniture in a home versus the furniture that's in the home. So a lot of people just have so much stuff they've accumulated over the years. Take a few pictures down, get all those stacked up boxes, and if you're moving especially. So yeah, I would say decluttering and curb appeal.
If you have boxes still in your basement or garage from when you moved into the house 5 years ago,
You probably don't need that.
odds are pretty good you can just trash those boxes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You didn't need it for the whole 5 years.
And I've done that. Like every time I have moved in the past 10 years, it's like I'll still have some boxes that never got unpacked. And a lot of times it's more of like, Amber's toys when she was little.
Yes.
You have that box of sentimental stuff, like some clothes, a pacifier, a baby bottle. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, okay, I really don't need 5 boxes of mementos for her childhood.
Yeah.
But now my daughter is a hoarder. Like, I think she took after my dad on that because she never wants to throw anything away.
Right.
And I'm just like, yeah, we don't need that. We don't need
Right.
that.
I'm not throw everything away. Let's just get rid of it.
Now, Venus will cling on to stuff. Like, we have to wait till she's at daycare or vacation Bible school to try and do a clean out because she'll be like, no, that's my stuff.
That's probably the age, though. All of mine did that about that age.
I'm like, girl, these are baby toys and you ain't a baby no more.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've got to work on that. Cleaning out her stuff because she's getting ready to start kindergarten.
Are you fixing to sell?
No.
Yeah.
No. It's just gotten to the
Declutter it.
point that the stuff is getting on my nerves.
Right.
And so it's one of those where you just have those seasons of we've got to purge. We've
Yeah,
got to
spring
get
cleaning
some
in
of
the
this
dead
stuff.
summer.
I need to do it too.
Well, because I couldn't do the spring cleaning in the spring, so it's one of those things. You
Yeah.
do it when you can do it. Now we'll
That's
call
true.
it fall cleaning if you want, but
Let that weather cool down just a little bit.
I know I'm thinking. Well, September's usually not that cool either. I don't know.
It's like you're spacing it out further.
I know. I'm gonna have to just sweat through it and get it done because
Yeah.
I got a lot of stuff I need to go through and purge. But all right, so y'all think the curb appeal is probably the most important thing looking at getting ready to put a house on the market. And I mean, huh?
Photography.
Right, you want to make it look good for the photos.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll ask my seller, like, do you have a budget? If there's some things that we need to do before we can go on the market, what's your budget for those types of things? And like you said, some people may just not have the money.
Right.
And I'm like, if we don't address these things on the front end,
then we have to show it in the price.
we have to show it in the price. Because the buyers are going to start taking money off right from the get-go.
Absolutely. That's how my mind works. When I'm walking through a house with a buyer, they're looking at what all they like, and I'm never looking at the aesthetics of the house. I'm looking at what's going to cost them money. Do you know what I'm saying? And things that I feel
without
like they
trying
need
to be a
see.
home inspector, stay in
Right?
your
Absolutely, absolutely. But I'm not going to tell them what it is. I'm just going to point it out to them, and clearly tell them. I don't think I'd do this without a home inspection. But again, there are things that you can do to kind of, if you've got old spots on the ceiling from where before you had a roof changed out, clean that stuff up. Because it may not
or
be a
if
big
you have
deal
the
to
crack and the ceiling has actually fell through to show the insulation in the
you. Right,
rafters,
clean it up.
and
Yeah.
you've put a new roof on, you might want to just do something about that ceiling.
Right. Check
Smell, I think, is one.
check the mechanics of the home. Are you having some leaking around your AC unit or anything? Have those things, looked at, and I think that's a better spend of their money than looking at the aesthetics, because if you've not updated it in the 5 years that you lived here, you're not going to get any money back out of new paint.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, look more at
Unless it's just really trash.
Well, right, but at that point, it kind of is what it is. So,
I thought go ahead.
but the big ticket items, I think, is what I try to say. This is the things that we need to
Look
make
at.
sure.
I now suggest like ozone machines sometimes, like cigarette smell, or some people that have animals. Like let's get that smell out of here, because that's a huge
Oh,
thing. When they walk in
absolutely.
and the smoker's been in there, a lot of times they're just like, nope.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if your house smells like cat and dog feces,
We're not
We
even
got-
going on
yeah.
that subject with me this week.
I mean, and I
We're
get, I know
working
you're
on it.
renovating one, but you have, there's been homes that I've shown, that look fantastic. And then you walk in them and when you walk in there, what a job it's going to be to try to get that out of the home.
Yeah.
Baseboards, floors, you're going to have a hard time getting that smell out of that house. So, yeah.
Well, and even talking about the cigarette smell, I smoke, but I don't smoke in my house.
Mm-hmm.
So when I walk into a house where somebody does smoke, I can
smell
smell it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And people say, well, this is my house. I've always smoked in it, blah, 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 blah. And I get that.
Absolutely.
That is your right to do.
Yeah.
But you have just severely limited your buyer pool when you do that.
Absolutely.
I had a lake house a few years ago, really nice house, and sat on a level lot, had a little dock. It was a good little home, and they would go out in their garage and smoke. I guess because it was winter time, so they went out in the garage. Well, so what happens whenever somebody walks into that garage and opens that door? Yeah.
The smell.
Or they would go out on their patio, but they'd leave the door open so it wafts back into the house. You know what I'm saying? We ended up selling it because that was the biggest thing we got in feedback, was the smell of cigarette smoke in the house. We ended up selling it to somebody that smoked. That was a non-factor for them because they were going to smoke in the house too.
Right.
So they didn't even smell it. Like it wasn't
Wasn't a big deal
anything.
for them. Right.
So, there's a buyer out there for every house, but you may end up waiting a lot longer for that buyer, or you may end up having to come down a lot in your price.
Yeah.
To make up for those types of things. So,
I agree.
you're awful quiet, Ashley. I know
I
you don't
feel
feel
rough.
good.
Yes. You go
I
get
feel
you some
rough
rest
today.
today.
All right, so let's talk about remaining professional during a strained transaction.
What say are you talking about it?
Well, okay, so we all have instances where things happen at the last minute. You know what I'm saying? You represent the buyer, I represent the seller, and let's say we have a issue with getting to closing on time. You communicate it to the other agent. Nobody's happy about it, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it is what it is.
Right.
And so I had this happen this past week, and this agent went ballistic on me. I mean, ballistic. And I was telling Heather about like the email exchange that we had. And I think she thought that I was just like exaggerating a little bit when I was telling her what this agent said to me. And then I printed the emails off and gave it to her, just so, broker calls, the other broker calls, she has a record of the transaction. And she was like, "Oh my God, she really said that to you." And I'm like, yeah, she did. I didn't make that up. You know what I'm saying? Because what she had said was, "I'm not sure how long you've been selling real estate, but let me educate you
Oh, wow.
on what a fully executed contract means." So I had this whole long reply typed out where I was basically just going to tell her about herself. And I thought better of it. You know what I'm like? I was like, I'm not going to be petty like she's being petty. I'm going to remain the professional that I am. So I deleted it. Felt better after I typed it out, but I deleted it. And I just sent back, "I've been selling real estate full time since 2012. I'm not real sure what that has to do with the discussion at hand. But yes, I do fully understand what a legally binding contract means. However, as I have stated, I cannot make someone move out of their house, nor can I make them sign paperwork." So we're right back where we were. So the irony of it was, I looked up this agent on the Tennessee website. And do you know when she got her license?
A couple years ago.
May 2024.
Oh, wow.
And I just thought, how egotistical and how presumptive do you have to be to put that in an email? Because if you've only been licensed a year, odds are good
that
Now I'm about to
that
Sorry.
I've worked a little bit longer than you,
Just a
honey.
little bit.
Right.
But yeah, so that was just an ordeal. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would type my emails and send them, and then I'd turn around to Michelle and be like, "Let me just tell you."
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, my lesson in that was we have to be professional in our communication. Because if the buyer files a complaint, if the agent files a complaint for no reason, you know what I'm saying? Then those records are going to be pulled and they're going to be looked at by either TREC or, the
absolutely.
local board for a whatever hearing. So at the end, I think I did the right thing by just staying business focused, on track,
Stay focused on the issue
on the
at
problem.
hand. Yes.
And at the end of the day, this is where we're at. I don't know, how your folks want to deal with it, but
right.
So assault charge wouldn't work good with this business anyway, so you might as well just stay focused.
well, and that's why I had my little post last night about I didn't turn my feelings into felonies this week, so I
Yeah,
did
I
good.
knew there was
You
something
did
up,
do
but that's
good.
why I asked you. Well, why don't you tell us?
But sometimes you just got to sit back. We deal with so many different people. And one of the things that Travis Earls told me in the beginning that has really rung true, he said, as you get into this, Michelle, one of the things, and as you continue to learn and see other people's levels, you're going to realize that there's a huge gap between here and here on these realtors. And to me, it's about considering your source. She's coming at you. She's making things personal, as you said. And really, at the end of the day, you kind of looked it up. You just consider your source. That's just ignorance on her part, and you have to just sit that aside. And you did so good because you stayed focused on the issue at hand, which was your client, and how to resolve that. And so it's not going to do any of us any good at the end of the day to have, to be insulting towards people or do any of those things. And I don't, her as a buyer's agent, she probably needs to realize that she's sometimes, in the way you conduct yourself, you're sometimes at the mercy of that seller's agent for future transactions. How well are you going to conduct yourself? How well are you going to work with somebody to get this thing to closing? And I think that makes a difference when you're on the other side of things to be able to say, and I'm not saying that you suck up to people or that you don't take up for your clients the best way that you can. But when you start getting really nasty and you start slinging insults and things of that nature, yeah, you're a little out of line, and you better realize that, because if you start talking to a bunch of sellers agents that way, you're gonna have a hard time getting contracts through for your clients.
Well, to me, it's the matter of, like you said, you can advocate for your client, but you can't
Absolutely.
take your frustration out on the agent.
Absolutely.
You've got to remain professional. There's no need in name calling or cussing or anything
Insults,
like that.
none of that.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you what my seller says, and that's just where I'm at. Like, I
You
have
work
no
for 'em.
influence over that.
Right.
So, you know, when I was talking to Heather about it, I said, to me, it comes across as she needed that to close. Like, there might have been financial strain on her part, that not closing on time was affecting her personally, her paycheck. And I've been there. You know what I'm saying? I
Sure.
can remember thinking I'm going to have to walk away from real estate because I had a deal that fell out and I was flat broke.
I get it.
I didn't have the money to pay my bills. But I can't let that affect
No.
how I handle myself. You know? People see desperation, and when you're looking for your own financial gain versus somebody else's.
And that right there to me is the key. I mean, we're supposed to be working for the better of our client at all times. That's what we do. I mean, and to not keep that in mind, or when you get in squabbles or you're being nasty, you're not keeping your focus on your client and doing the best job that you can for them. Now you've made it personal. And that's just out of line. You're doing it for the wrong reason at that point.
You will
So-
end up working with that person again in the future. Usually has to come back around.
I'm knocking on wood that I don't, but whatever. All right, so we will be back in 2 weeks, but quick reminder for you that tax-free weekend will start on midnight of the 25th. Is that right?
Not sure.
Kids are out of school. I don't think about it anymore.
Well, mine's starting back, so for
this
the
is
first
the one
time
to
in a
ask
while.
about things like that.
Well, I had
No,
read
because
it.
I avoid that weekend
Oh, I
because
get
it's
it.
so
Because
crazy.
it's chaotic.
Honey, online.
Yeah, I'm like you,
Walmart,
online, but-
all of them. I do the online. But it starts at midnight that Friday, and will run through midnight on Sunday, the last weekend here in July, because Hamlin County goes back to school July 31st.
Oh, I did not know that.
They only go, like, for half a day. And then they're out, and then they go back, like, the first Monday in August. I think it's ridiculous. Why are you going for a half a day?
Right.
But Venus goes back August the 12th. That'll be her start date. So,
Right. Yay!
oh yeah, it's gonna be a change, and she does not
Do well with change.
do well with change.
She has done better with it recently.
Well, she does
but-
better, but like
Yes.
the schedule changes, things like that. Like she was out of daycare for a week because they were closed for the 4th of July. You know, and they had went on vacation. So she had her babysitter the whole week. She loves her babysitter. You know what I'm saying? But just that change
Schedule
in
change.
routine, she was out of whack all week. Like, you know, little things cause meltdowns.
Right.
Just a struggle for every little, you know, it's time to go to bed, power struggle.
But it'll bring so much consistency once she gets settled into the school routine.
But how long is that going to take?
I know.
That's where my
You got
debate
this
is.
memo. You got this memo.
Because I'm not, I don't know.
You got this memo.
Like by the end of the day, I just want to go to bed. Like I don't want to fight with you. I don't want to scream
No, I get
and
that
holler.
too.
I just want to go to bed. Can we just do that?
Yeah.
But anyway. All right. So we'll see you folks again in 2 weeks.
Bye.